I warned you right off the bat. I'm not a very serious person. Well, John Richard Siebman, Siebman, the third.
And where are you from?
I was born in Sherman, Texas.
Sure.
Well, I didn't grow up in my hometown, so I was just born in Sherman, Texas. So the hometown was only the place where the hospital was, you know. My parents actually moved pretty soon after that to California. So for the first 4 years of my life or so, I was in California. And somehow he ended up in Fort Worth, which is where I actually grew up. I would say my memories of growing up are in Fort Worth. One of the inspirations for learning to play guitar was my cousin Brian, who was my first cousin. It was the uncle I was referring to that lived in California. That was his son, who was probably maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years older than me, you know. But by the time that I was a teenager, and he was probably either an older teenager or maybe even in his, like becoming, in his 20s, he was on the Lawrence Welk show playing guitar and singing and stuff because he was a talented guy. Jack, my uncle, is also a talented musician. He could play any instrument without anybody. No lessons, no nothing. He could always play. He played guitar. He showed me all kinds of jazz chords when I was trying to learn how to play guitar. And he could also sit down and just play piano like he was in a saloon somewhere, just play, And so anyway, his son was similar in that he could just play really well. And if you looked on YouTube for Brian Siebman, now you will find a little black and white video of him singing with one of the Lennon sisters, singing some Christmas song or something like that. That's been preserved. My memory as a teenager is the Ventures. Me and my dad and mom, liked music, and we always had a big console record player in the living room, which I really wish I still had that thing. I mean, it had a TV, and it had the console record player and a radio, and the whole thing was right there. The way they used to do stuff, and it was a piece of furniture at the same time, so it would all fold up and look like some kind of cabinet or something that you just had. It was awesome. That's a great time to be around, as far as I'm concerned. When I started to learn how to play guitar, it was because of Brian. We'd all go up to the farm where my grandfather and grandmother lived and we'd be hanging around out there. We'd meet. He'd show up and be a part of the thing, for every once in a while he'd come visiting, and they'd get him to do some kind of little something, So that all the relatives and everybody that had seen him on, the Lawrence Welk show up there in the country out in Sadler, Texas, which is just a little podunk town, would just show up at my grandparents' house to watch Brian do one of his little things, And he was entertaining and funny and was great. I mean, I thought, I've got to be able to do this. I must be able to do this, So anyhow, I ended up with the guitar, which I didn't learn to play right off, because nobody was around to say, "Hey, do this," I mean, there wasn't any. I didn't take lessons or anything. So here's your guitar. Here you go. Well, now what? I'm going ding, 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 ding. What can you do without knowing what the keyboard was and all that? The fretboard. That was my childhood. But my teenage years was learning how to play guitar and that whole thing. Be in a band. Once the Beatles showed up, it got me away from trying to learn Ventures stuff and now sing, right? And so the neat thing is I had a crony up the street, Jack Wadsworth, who played, we were both planning to learn how to play guitars, and so of course here we are, we were just going to learn these Beatles songs and stuff. By then I'd picked up chords and stuff like that, and gotten chord books for something and learned how to do that and whatever, So I kind of began to put it together a little bit. And the Beatles' early records had the stereo of the type that all the vocals were on one side of the stereo image and all the music was on the other side. So if you were trying to learn, say, a harmony part and didn't know a damn thing about harmony, well, turn the music off on that side and listen to what, let's say, John and Paul were singing. And you could hear what they were singing pretty well, John singing this part, start focusing on that, and then Paul singing this part, one of us start focusing, and we just picked it up, Hey, we can do that, And so now we've learned to play and sing. So, we had a band with me, Wadsworth, and a guy named John Mandel, based on the Venture stuff, called the Three Dimensions. and we didn't have a drummer or a bass player. It was just three acoustic guitars, We didn't have an electric guitar or anything, three acoustic guitars. But, we could play Walk, Don't Run and, Windy and Warm and all these songs that came off of these various Ventures records, And we played at some elementary school little shows that they would put on. I remember us playing it. It wasn't even at our school. It was just somebody else. We were on this little talent show kind of thing they had, And I can also remember John Mandel. He was against the singing idea. He thought the singing was just stupid. He was just a die-hard instrumental player, right? I mean, the Ventures and that kind of thing, the Shadows and just the Shantays, Pipeline, all that stuff. That was what was cool. Singing was for wimps. You know what I mean? That's the way he looked at it. And they asked us to do some song. And we did our little set of 5 Venture songs or whatever it was, and then they wanted an encore. And so Jack and I had been practicing. I'd been singing the song Abilene, which is kind of a country western song, or a little folky kind of country western song. And so we just went, let's do that. Let's go back out there and do Abilene. And John Mandel refused to play with us. He just started packing his stuff up, and like he was just absolutely not going to have it. I can remember him now going, "Pew," and that's what he would say, like this smelled bad or something, Yeah, anyway, we went over great. It seems to me we may have even done some other song, while we were out there singing, I knew that I could do this at this point, But at the same time, I was naive enough to think that all you had to do was be good and all would be well. But it turns out there are a lot of people that are good. I mean, the ones that that you see on TV and stuff like that, that's a fraction of the people that are actually playing out there, right? And that pyramid, if you can imagine this is the industry, is like a really short pyramid with a very big bottom and a very tiny, hardly gets anywhere top, you know what I mean? And those few that you see on TV are that. But then the ones that have a really long career are still pretty few and far between. They kind of come and go pretty quickly. It's a thing that depends on the public tastes. And that just shifts around a lot. Almost any entertainment is like that. It doesn't, you could be, one of my favorite guitar players is Joe Pass, who was a jazz guy. Well, the average person doesn't even know he ever existed, Never heard of him, the average person. I could mention that to almost anybody. Hey, did you ever heard this Joe Pass record? And they'd just ask me, who, they wouldn't know. And he was just so good that it's just like if it was just your talent and your ability that would make things happen, then everybody'd know who he was, But that's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. It's like, it's the same old story. It's like, who and you also have to want to make it be a business. And I've never have been a businessman in my life. You know what I mean? No. Don't be so worried about what anybody thinks about anything, which is, oddly enough, I thought I was like that. But no, I was too concerned, really, in a way. I had great ideas that I would just keep to myself. You know what I mean? And not really. I mean, I do stuff for myself, and there it would be. But I would. I don't think I believed in myself, other than in my own little self isolated kingdom of my own little world. And I didn't try it out in the real world, and I should have, because I think I would have gotten a lot further with this entertainment business, the music business, all that stuff, if I had done that, if I had just sold myself more. You know what I mean? But I just didn't, and some of that was just worried about what if somebody might think. They might think it was stupid or something. Don't worry about any of that. Just do your thing. Get after it like it's the best thing there is. If you like it, there are people out there also that will like this, and will support you. And don't be afraid to blow your own horn. You want to be proud of what you do and do that thing. If only one other person agrees with you, hey, or if nobody agrees with you, if you think it's good, stay with it. Do it. Like for school, I did okay. I can remember Dr. Platt, who was my philosophy teacher in college, going, I can tell your priorities are not the school thing. But he was basically trying to tell me if I would really try, you'd be doing great. You know what I mean? Because I was sharp enough. But I just was in my own little dreamland, and now, however many years later it is now, 50 years later, I still am in that same dreamland. So I think that was built in from the get-go. Why worry about that? I mean, why sit around and focus on this crappy stuff? If you're unless you're going to have to go out there and do something about it, then hey, you can't do anything about most of the things that are happening. You know what I mean? You can do something, but your own life, you can make that be all right. And we're all out here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of endless space so far, with absolutely no direction from anything out there. We're just out here. Hey, relax and enjoy the ride. I mean, it isn't going to last long. So hey, don't get just marveling at existence itself. Really, My dad, but I would not see him as an intellectual or anything. But he was just somebody that he seemed interested in everything, and also he supported me in all my various goofy things. I'd show him a painting that was some kind of some abstraction or something, and he'd say, well, there's another thing I don't get, but he didn't, he was always poking fun and having a good time, and my grandparents I would say, were more like the Gothic, the American Gothic, painting you see of the guy with the pitchfork and the lady. They were more like that, because they were like Christians and more. My grandfather was the church music guy. He played piano while everybody sang and stuff like that. So he was the music coordinator of the church. But they were very staid in that sense. They were more conservative in every way in this, because they lived up in the country. Sadler, Texas is like country. There's a few roads that even run around through that thing, and the Sadler itself is like a gas station and a post office. There's nothing else there. There's no town really, except houses. There are houses around. So but at the same time, they were very cool and very loving people, and so my friends all loved going up there, because my grandmother would always fix a big meal, and everybody was welcome. And all I remember her is laughing, kind of just giggling and kind of laughing. She was just like that. That was it. I don't remember her talking about anything much. Lots of patting people on the back and stuff, and she was just fantastic. The whole thing was fantastic up there. It really was. Anyway, what was that? You had a question, but I got off. I'd forgotten to mention them. I'd forgotten to mention them. I wish they were still around. I'd love to go back up there. I'd like to be myself, being 8 years old again, hanging around with my grandfather. That was something else. He had tractors and stuff, it was great. He was trying all sorts of stuff. But how he got the farm was that his dad, how he got this any money, I have no idea. But John Alfred Siebman, which would have been my great grandfather, moved from Kentucky to that area, which is the Sherman Denison area, and somehow had this big amount of land that he got, or somehow I don't know anything about how that was acquired or where did he come, whatever. His wife was named America Jane Bowles. I always thought America as a front name was a fantastic name. America Jane Bowles. It just sounds like a actress or something. I mean, it's somebody that should have been important somehow. Anyway, but anyway, all of his kids got 250 acres. And everybody got all, and he had, let's see, he had Midgie and Jack and Dad. So he had 3 kids. They all got that. Then he had something too. So I don't know where he got all this land. I've got no idea. But anyway, that's. I don't know how I got off on that, but anyway, that's there's still some of this land up there, which we're talking about, departing with. There's actually a Siebman Road up there. We were talking about this the other day. You have to do something to take care of yourself. You have to do something. There is no way you're going to be able to make it without doing something to take care of yourself. We were talking about the prime directive. That is it. You're born, and if you were a muskrat or something, you would have to take care of yourself. That's it. There is no other. You've got to do it, and nothing's going to come along and help you out. Luckily, the human race is, sort of organized and has gotten this civilization. It wasn't always that way, though. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, probably there was no civilization. You still had to take care of yourself. I would say mainly just events that have to do with, my family, and stuff like that. I remember my wife, when we had these 3 kids, the oldest one was 6, telling me, this is my last night at the house. And I went, what? Yeah, I've said this to many people, but you don't find out what you're like until something really horrible happens. And you don't find out what anybody else is really like until something happens. Then you find out what they're actually like, because they could be, as long as everything's okay, they can pretend to be all kinds of ways. Until something comes along to really push you up against the wall, that's when you find out how you are, what you really are, not what you thought you were or you dreamed up or what you would tell somebody in an interview like this, but what really happens then, And I can tell you right then that I felt just abject fear at that point, because it suddenly was, what? Now everything that had been happening for years is suddenly just going to just be gone, just like that. And she had a little plan worked out and all this kind of stuff of what was going to happen, how it was going to, and I was going. And all this plan had nothing to do with me being a part of it because I didn't know anything about it, So that wasn't a good thing, but here I am. So, and also I just resolved to do what I had been doing, which was to make the kids and their upbringing be what needed to be focused on. To hell with that, to heck with her. I say you have to take care of yourself, and it really needs to be the main thing, I would say. Do something so that you've got something to eat and a place to be, and just the same thing, again, if you were a cricket, you'd have to do this. My mental state is I'm no different than I was when I was 13, maybe 12 or 13, something like that. When I was first learning how to play guitar, I feel exactly the same as I did then. I know a lot more about guitar, but I still don't sit around and practice and try to get to be Joe Pass, for instance. No, I'm going to let Joe Pass be Joe Pass. What I'm going to do is I usually use the guitar to make up music, not to be a hotshot guitar player like I'm going to go be a hotshot guitar player. That has never, I mean, there are people that are tuners and there are people that are kind of riffers. I mean, I would say the riffer is somebody that just shreds guitars, and that's what his whole thing is, just blowing and going, right? The tuner is somebody that likes to make up songs, make up music. And I've always liked writing also. I would have to say, a lot of inspiration came from stuff I've read in the past, in writing, especially the surrealists and the Dadaists, and they just kind of took apart stuff. Didn't try to keep up and didn't try to hone something that was already there, but just tear it totally up and see what else you can do with it, Well, that's the kind of thing that's always appealed to me is like, you just make it up. You make something up and see where it goes. It's kind of like you're on a little journey when your mind, come along if you can, the journey inside of your mind, Anyway, I like really imaginative writers, and that's true of musical composition type writers and just book writers, literature people. What's purple and hums? An electric grape. Why does it hum? It doesn't know the words. What's purple and sails the seven seas? Moby Grape, 3 events that what?
Most shaped your life.
Shaped my life. Well, the Beatles. As I was saying earlier about the Ventures and stuff, those things were, they're indelible. I mean, those things were it, I would say because the music was it. Once music got to be the thing, that made like you trying to write poems or something like that. Well, here now you're writing poems that have music with them. And now they're songs. So all of that stuff all came from the Beatles, I think. Probably making up stuff and so that was one. Probably just reading things. I would say reading certain books and stuff mattered a lot to me. But oddly enough, and one of these came when I was in my 30s, there's a book that's just nothing but a pamphlet looking kind of thing. It's just a little, something on a small press that was called The Bonnie Clabber by a guy named George Chambers. That turned out to be one of the most interesting, thought-provoking things that I had read in a long time. And it's not anything that you'll ever hear anybody ever mention, but it's still one of my favorite books. So that was something that, and I have probably incorporated his way of looking at things, his funny way of looking at stuff into some of the stuff that I've done myself. So thanks, George Chambers, out there for being such a great writer. Profound, that it just absolutely showed me that this whole deal is just made up by us for ourselves and for us to run around in. It's like a hamster cage that we've made for ourselves. There's the wheel over there. This is what we do over here. Here's where our food deal is. There's the water droplets come over here. And we all live our happy little lives in this little made-up world that we made up. But that's not the world that was here before we made it up. That's not the way this planet was, So I remember going down to the Vulcan Gas Company, which is a psychedelic thing down in Austin, which would be like the 13th floor elevators would play there. And, all the same time period that this Haight-Ashbury business is going on that's happening there. And there were some places over in Dallas, too, that were similar to that. And so anyway, I remember being down there and seeing a band called the Conqueroo. And And here you are with the squiggly stuff on the ceiling and all that, run through the overhead projector, and then just the same thing you'd always see in movies of those of that time period, squiggly stuff, But the Conqueroo blew me away because they played basically one song for the entire set. They would play for an hour. And it would go all over the place. It would stop being this blasting, thrashing thing and just calm down and turn into some little thing, some other little deal, and it just wandered all around. And I thought, this has got to be one of the best pieces of music I've ever heard. It just covered all bases, everything in a way, and you just were in it, sort of, just the same way they were in it. You didn't want to get out of it in a way. You wanted to just keep on going. And later on, playing in a band called the Fort Worth Cats, which is probably the most successful band I was ever in as far as having a crowd, having people following us and stuff, we incorporated a lot of that kind of thing. Because later on in the night, after we'd done a couple of sets, and now it was the end of the last set maybe, that last set could be a thing sort of like that. We would just get on into these deals that it was just go. Where do we want to go? Well, we'll find out. We don't know. We're going that way. Here, we're going to just see what it was. It might be something good. It might be something stupid, but that's where we're going. We'll find out, and then when we run out of time, we'll hit the last chord, and that's the end of the night, And all that came, in my opinion, from the Conqueroo, basically. And, I like the fact that was in the air in those days. You know what I mean? You didn't expect it. You expected that, really. When people got on the stage, they expected somebody to do something cool. They didn't expect to hear the hits of the day. They wanted to hear something different, something that that was a whole different attitude, really. The era we were just talking about when the psychedelic 60s, that was the time I liked the best, actually. And not because of drugs or anything else, like I've said. I don't do any drugs, I don't even drink. So, I forget all of that. It's nothing to do with championing any of that. It has to do with the let it all hang out, do your own thing, don't worry about anything. Just make it up. Make it up as you go along. Just do your own thing. Don't worry about it. Don't go look for a book on how to do this. Do it yourself. You do it. It's you're the one in your shoes. You're walking around. Do that. Just be yourself. All right.
I love that.
Interview over.
No, those are great. What do you remember?
I've even watching the Twilight Zone that episode. It got me thinking about that same thing. It's tough to think about what it would be that didn't have some kind of ramifications that you don't think about. You do something, and there's nothing that you can do that doesn't have consequences that you couldn't have foreseen. And that's kind of what the story. That's what the Twilight Zone thing was about. A guy wants money, but it turns out he starts giving all his money away, and he's got, come on, he's being a great guy, and everybody's going to, and then finally the IRS shows up and gets the rest of the money. And he's going, well, all right, I got one more wish, I want to be powerful or something. I want to be the leader of a country, And so he ends up being, and the next thing you see, he looks like Adolf Hitler or something, and he's going, that's not what I had in mind, It's kind of like, so what would you wish for? I wish that I would figure out a way that we could get away from our tribalism somehow and see the whole planet as being sort of a whole, a thing, not just pieces of it here. This is over here. This is over here. I mean, I know geography has created this. That's why there is this. You know what I mean? It's because if there are mountain ranges you can't hardly get over, and this is on them one side, this is on the other side. And so, but having this kind of us against them, I'm better than you are. My ideas are better than your ideas. No, let's figure out a way to cooperate and somehow realize that, again, that this is not going to last forever for any of us. So, hey, let's try to get something going where we can make this earth and our lives and everything on this planet, all the other animals and everything, a paradise if we wanted to. We've got that ability. You can just look around and see this. The potential is there, but we are still backstabbing and infighting and scheming against the other guy, and that's part of the personality of the human being itself. You know, that kind of, those kind of ingredients are in people. Some of them are mean spirited people who are just mean and angry and don't want to be any other way than that. You know, they want to kick ass, you know, and that's about all they want to do, you know. That's the power mad type, you know what I mean? Somehow we've got to get around. I would have, if I could have a wish, this genie would somehow or another. And I hate this idea too, because that kind of goes like the Clockwork Orange. You've seen that movie? Well, that's the thing. Here's we have Alex and his droogs, his buddies, going out for a little of the old ultra violence. You know what I mean? And that's how they get their kicks. It's like beating up some old man or something like that, kicking the hell out of him when he's down there bleeding and stuff. You know, and then they all run off thinking, "Hey, this was great." You know, that was fun. You know. And so the answer there was to kind of give him some kind of drugs, is the way I remember it now, that made him where any time he felt a desire to do anything that it required either, I mean, even like lust or something like that, any kind of base desire or anger or anything, that he would start getting sick at his stomach. He would start almost throwing up, you know what I mean, every time. So the idea was to kind of brainwash him, you know what I mean, to make it where he couldn't do any of this stuff. And that wasn't the answer either, you know what I mean? So what is the answer? What would this genie do? I don't know what he would do, but he would try to make it where let's brainwash everybody, where they would just act better, by God, you know, hey, you know. That's what I'm willing to try that anyway, you know. I mean, smooth this out a little bit. Don't get so, you know, one way or the other, you know. You know, the Hatfields and the McCoys, let's get them where they get along, you know, and they shake hands and go have a barbecue or something, you know what I mean? And stop worrying about what the past was and what, you know, the Israelis and the Arabs. I mean, get them together and say, you know, what's funny, if you look at the DNA of the Arabs and the Israelis, they're the same, you know. And you get to be 20 years old again and know what I know now, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I would be the more confident person again, you know. Say whatever the hell's on my mind. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, you know, in advance. You know, and do my own thing with a little more time to spend, you know, than I do have now, you know. I'm now toward the end of this whole thing, and yeah, you know, there's not going to be that many more years. You know, I think if something happened 20 years ago now, well, I won't be able to do that 20 years from now because I won't be around 20 years from now. So that was, you know, these 20-year pieces, these 10-year pieces, are getting smaller and smaller. In fact, there are fewer, and finally, there won't be any more of them, you know. So I would rather be, if I could probably turn back the clock, and I think everybody would do that, you know, I would say, if they could.
Right.
I think they don't like the idea of perishing. So there we are.
Third wish.
Oh, God, probably I'd like to see all my own offspring be successful, especially my son, who is probably is, you know, he's the most like me in many ways, you know, and so, you know, maybe he would have benefited from a more authoritarian kind of dad, you know what I mean, instead of a goofball like me, you know. But because he's very much doing his own thing. That's what he does, you know. But at the same time, he's unrealistic in every kind of way, and more so than I am. And I'm pretty unrealistic, but he's more so, more than me. But he has the potential for being. He's got a lot of good ideas. He's a sharp guy. He can do all sorts of stuff, but mainly, you know, I would say, well, it's not just him. I would say that would be true of all my offspring, and their lives. I want them to do well and basically enjoy themselves. The same, but I would say that for everybody, really. It's a part of that very first one. Let's everybody get along. Well, why don't we just get along, for Christ's sake? And let's get out and have a good time here. It's just life's short.
All right.
Life is very short, and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I'll just say it's been fun. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. I'm going to try to make the most of these last 3 days. I don't know when that actually comes. I'm going to try to have it be where I, put on some music. Put on some Joe Pass. And just do the stuff I like to do when I'm just sitting around doing nothing anyway. And when it's not like there's going to be a lot to do there in these 3 days. Like, boy, I got to write my memoirs real quick or something. No, should have already done and whatever I was going to do. So my plan is to probably then would be to kick back, and what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of, So yeah, I'd still say, yeah, it's just getting along, man. That's it. All you need is love. Da, 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 da. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. All you need to do is learn how to play the game, and it's easy. All you need is love, That's in the words of the poet,
What are you most thankful for?
Being around, being anything at all. The fact that I'm anything, that I'm not just who knows what caused all this? Who knows? There's all kinds of feelings about this. But I could have just been a piece of granite or something. It was just a chemical composition here. We are made of the stuff that the earth itself is made of. In fact, the earth itself is alive, and we are the skin of it, kind of. It's really how this is, and the way I see it, because this didn't just, I don't believe it just popped in from somewhere else. I think it happened right here, out of the ingredients that are right here. And the ashes to ashes, dust to dust is exactly how it is. We'll go right back to being that again once we've run our course. You know what I mean? It might not have been that way. We were talking about June bugs and things before. Well, you wouldn't have been able to get a June bug up here and set him on a little chair and ask him questions and have him answer them. No, he can't do that. He does not have a big enough cerebrum to do that. He's got enough of a brain to motorize himself around and go do the things that a June bug does. Find something to eat somewhere. Try to fly better than he doesn't fly worth a crap, So he's just going to run around and bang into things, and but he's got that's what he's got to work with, and I'm damn glad that I'm a little ahead of that, and I say that even not putting the June bug down. I honestly think that everything on this and that we know of as being of life is just as important as we are. It's the same thing, literally the same thing. We happen to end up with this cerebrum that's both our benefit and our bane at the same time, because it also causes all of the crap, that we do. It's like the magic thing that can be used for good or evil. Well, it's the big brain is it. That is the thing. That's. It causes us to do all this wonderful stuff, but it also, man, it can cause us to do all sorts of awful stuff. Just awful, god-awful stuff. So, but a June bug does not bother with any of that. He's not going to affect the course of history, you know what I mean, ever. But we could, we could just tear this whole thing up, and might, who knows,
So
It's up to us to make this happen, and to me, we will have to combine forces as opposed to being fighting and kicking the crap out of each other in order for this to happen. And we could save the world. We could literally make this into a paradise. I've said this before many times. It's just right there. Everybody would have plenty to eat. Everybody had plenty to do. We would all have something meaningful to do with our lives. And it would be Plato's ideal society could be realized. I mean, the technology is there, but the vision is not. It's just still about me against you. I'm just thinking about me. I don't care about you. To hell with you. If you can't cut it, too bad. My only reason for basically disliking the Republicans, and I'm not a political guy hardly at all. I find just as many things to dislike about the Democrats, like that. But the fact that the Republican thing is basically, if you can't cut it, too bad. It's like they're against the whole, helping people out, programs that will help people out. And I admit those programs could be misused, and often are, and it's such a lot of waste of money is there and all that crap. But just try. It's not a bad thing. Trying to help people. Not everybody was born wealthy. Most people were born not wealthy. They don't have squat. So, why is that? Why let it just stay this way? It would be better if everybody had more money to spend. The economy would be better off. We'd all be cooking along, and it would be a funner life for everybody. So I tend to be idealistic in that sense. And I really dislike the whole tough. If you can't make it, too bad. You're the weakling. You just need to go on down the road, I don't like that attitude at all,
I agree.
So there. I don't know what did that answer anything? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that was perfect in the past.
I don't know. Good advice I've received in the past.
Along
Have I had received any good advice? I don't know, maybe, yeah.
If you can just move a little off the microphone.
Which way?
There you go. Where's the arm?
You can.
Or you can move it up.
Hey, you little wee bitty 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 weedy bitty 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 bitty
Out of here.
weedy bitty 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 bitty
Right
bitty
here. Mama's right
oh
here.
weedy bitty 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 bitty.
You're looking at me. I'm right here. I'm right here.
She's not either. She's just kidding you. She's not right there.
Are you still holding the microphone?
I don't know what I'm doing.
You're holding the harmonica. We're good.
I'm on a harmonica. You want to play harmonica someday?
Do you want to try to get on video?
Do you think anything up? You even notice that? She's going, what the hell's going on? I keep thinking that that's what she's got on her. You see the thought balloon above her head is just there going,
Hey,
question mark,
girl?
What the hell?
What's your name, big girl? How old are you?
Hey, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Wiggle, waggle.
Yeah, I'm 7 weeks old.
7 weeks old.
My name is Danielle.
And I can kick my foot around.
Danielle May.
Yeah, I can kick my foot around. Oh, getting the King Crimson face going again.
That was enough.
That was the end of that little story.
Too much stardom. Too much.
That's right.
Say bye.
That didn't take long to run her off. Get,
Little harmonica.
okay, yeah, we'll play some harmonica. I wish I had a better one. Now this is a $4 harmonica I got off of somewhere once upon a time. And it isn't that great of a harmonica because if you really draw on it, which you have to do, in other words, like the way you play a harmonica, you can play it like it is. This is in the key of C. All right, well, if you blow on it, those are going to be the notes that make up the C chord, just over and over again and all the way up, if you're getting higher and higher, you're just going, that'll be like C, E, and G. C, E, and G, C, E, and G, you know, and then, you know, just different combinations of that all the way up. And now if you draw on it, though, it's got the chord G7th, which is the fifth of C. You know, C, E, and G are the, you know, notes in a C chord. Well, the fifth is always the, it's kind of like the, you go back to C if you hear this chord. Are you going, and the da-da-da, then it's back to the, you know, you know, here we are again. So it's like, you know, but if you play cross harp, which is known as blues harp, and out there in the world somewhere, wherever these guys, Muddy Waters, all those guys we were talking about, you know, they dreamed all this crap. I don't even know who was the first guys that played that thing, but they played as if this were in G7th, not C. C is not even, is only used partially. So you'd go, oh, so now you're going, you know, well, that's kind of a blues phrase, right? You know, and that da-da, well, the da, that's the key you're in, which is G. So, and this is a C harp, so you're not playing in C anymore. You know, you're playing in G. And then, you know, and also the fact that the seventh note is in there allows you to get these bluesy sounds, you know. Anyway, if you, you know, and I'm not any hell for skilled, you know, I don't do this very often. You know, I mean, once every 5 years I might pick up one of these things, you know. But at one time I learned how to do it, and this was probably when I was 20 or something. And I had a harmonica holder, and me and Wadsworth, the same guy again, you know, my crony my musical crony from when I was, you know, 13, you know, and stuff like we were learning how to play the Ventures stuff. We had a little jug band, kind of a, you know, outfit, and we played at pizza parlors and stuff, you know. This is before the or maybe it was right around the same time, or maybe a little after the high school bands and stuff, because I had listened to the Lovin' Spoonful somewhere along the line. Another influence, you know, another big influence that just kind of showed me all this stuff that was all this old stuff. You know, I mean, they themselves were being a pop music 60s thing, you know, and the stuff you hear on the radio wasn't really this jug band type stuff. But John Sebastian and his cronies, they're his pals, and they liked that kind of music, and that's what got him into the music business in the first place, is seeing these what was called jug band players, you know, play. And a jug band is what that basically means is that you're going to use household instruments, household goods to make your instruments. You're going to maybe have a banjo, you might have a guitar, but all the rest of it is going to be spoons, or it's going to be a washboard or something else you're going to make percussion instruments out of. You're just going to make whatever you got into something else, into a musical instrument. And so somebody came up with the idea of using a jug, which was just nothing but you'd put molasses in or something like that, and just blowing in the top of it to create bass notes. Oh, boo, 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 that kind of thing. You know, you weren't even changing tones really, because there's nothing to make the tones change, but it made a bass sound. And so that sound, if you had somebody playing with you, you know what I mean, you know, would it sound like there was a bass in the place, you know. And so that's where the term a jug band came from, because somebody would have that jug, you know. And anyway, that was back in the 30s, and that was the Great Depression and all that stuff. You know, people didn't have any money, so you know, they learned how to play to entertain themselves, because there wasn't anything else to do. There's no place to go, no place to go see anybody. There was no money. You know, the whole thing had fallen apart, right? So now here you are, you know. And so that's where the whole jug band phenomena came from the Great Depression, basically. And what was I going to say? Well, I don't even know how I got in with the Lovin' Spoonful, but, you know,
Shoot down.
well, you're the one doing this, but I tend to run off at the mouth if I ever get started. So, you know, I hope you're planning on editing this down to nothing, hopefully.
No.
Well, we can distill all of this down to me going. What do you think about that? That's it. All right, on to the next guy.